welcome back to Between You and Me. Welcome back to another episode in season 6. It is episode 11. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that I have switched things around. I have created a little recording area for the podcast. It is a little bit my excuse of why it's been so long since another episode has come out. Obviously, I take my breaks between seasons, and in this case, we're taking a break in the midst of a season. So like after episode 10, we're going to do 10 more. That's what we're in for, by the way, another 10 episodes. But my break was a little extra long, and that was because at the beginning of this month, I'm like, okay, I want to start my podcast at the beginning of this month. Turns out I had the idea to completely switch where I record it. I wanted to create a new area that was just going to be specifically for the podcast, and it was really hard. It was really hard, which you might not think it is. You'd be like, Alex, why was that difficult for you? But I needed to look into getting different furniture, rearranging my room. It was just really stupid, but it took me a really long time. And also I did look into studio spaces because I thought that would be really cool. Apparently they just don't have that near where I live, and I wasn't gonna commute to Toronto every single time I wanted to record a podcast episode. So we have settled here for the corner of my room, which I personally think looks decently cute. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. Also, may I add, happy Halloween. This episode is coming out a day before Halloween, and if you are seeing the title of the episode, I did do a little wordplay so that it relates to the holiday season, the spooky Halloween season. Also, another thing I'm going to say is apologies for my voice. I unfortunately got sick from either my sister or my boyfriend. They were both sick around the same time. My sister got sick first. I spent some time with her. My boyfriend came over a couple days later. He's sick, blah, blah, blah. The whole family is sick at this point. Everyone around me is sick. I don't know. I was just bound to get sick. I think it's the change of the season, and that is why I have a little tea and some tissues next to me on this side. It's not the ideal day to be recording this podcast, but like I said, we took a little too long to get this season out, so I'm doing it anyways. So if you are not following the podcast Instagram account, it's at Between You and Me Podcast. I suggest you follow it. But on top of that, I have created an email for you guys because I do feel at the end of the day, I created this podcast to be able to give you guys advice, talk to you about life, how navigating our 20s is like, but also, hence the name, be able to communicate with you guys and have a back and forth discussion, which is why I created the email where you guys will be able to send me your questions, your situations that you're in your life that you might need advice on, anything that is kind of troubling you, or any subject that you want me to talk about. I've already gotten some questions on there, but I don't have enough to do a whole episode for. So if you guys have any of those situations that you want to talk to me about, the email is questionsbetweenyouandme@gmail.com. Whether or not the questions relate to the episode, I might throw in some at the end potentially. I won't for this episode because I know that most of the questions I have so far are very relationship centered. So in the future, when I have relationship episodes, which I we'll add some of those questions in. But if you have anything else other than relationships, but I do love the relationship questions, I'm not gonna lie. I love to give advice. I feel like it's where I thrive, to be honest. The episodes that I talk about relationships, I edit the least because I'm just spitting facts the whole entire time. Anyways, let me drink my sip of tea. By the way, to add to the spooky season, this is a little skull pug mug. I bought it about 5 years ago when I recorded a changing my room or preparing for fall or fall aesthetic room video or something like that. I honestly can't remember. It was a really shit video. Okay, anyways. So to fit the spooky, ooky Halloween vibes, I decided to dedicate this episode to talking about facing our inner demons. Now, what I mean by inner demons is your suppressed emotions, suppressed situations that you don't want to face in your life, situations that you don't acknowledge as something that might have changed you, and basically things that are currently affecting your life that you've experienced in the past and are not willing to accept them. Okay, that's what I would define inner demons as. I'm definitely not talking about actual demons or, ghosts and goblins and things like that. That's a little too scary for me and not the subject that we really talk about here on this podcast. So, yeah, sorry. But if you did come here to hear about more of the subject I was talking about, then let's get into it. So I think that there are two types of personalities, one being more so on the overthinking, anxious side, and one being more so on the avoidant side. And it's funny that this avoidant / anxious dynamic comes into play here as well, but it does, because if you guys know anything about the avoidant anxious dynamic, it has a lot to do with relationships. And one of the relationships that it has to do with is the relationship with yourself. So what I like to think about it as is, for me, I'm an anxious person when it comes to relationships and the dynamic of myself as a person. I don't think I had to disclose that because you must know that by now with the amount of times that I talk about it. But as an anxious person, I feel like I am very overindulgent on the problems in my life, the problems about myself, my flaws, my past, what makes me the way that I am today. And I feel like I am I overthink that a lot. So when you are a person who is similar to myself and has these types of ruminating thoughts where you're always trying to investigate why you are the way you are, you would think that you don't have many inner demons, that you don't have any suppressed emotion, feelings, or situations that you've been in your life that you haven't addressed today. But surprise, surprise, you most likely do, as do all of us, unless you've had a very, very calm life and not a lot of issues have happened to you in your life. And if that's the case, I doubt you're watching. I doubt you're watching and or listening to this podcast. But if you're on the other side of the spectrum and you are the type of person who is very avoidant, this is going to be very applicable to you. Being the anxious type, you probably have less things that you have suppressed in your life, let's be honest, because when you are anxious, you have less of the opportunity to suppress things because your mind, your body doesn't allow you to. It brings everything to the forefront, which is why you are always anxious and stressed about things. That's just the way that your mind is wired. But if you are an avoidant person, if you feel like you stray away from conflict, from things that bring you stress, from situations that you didn't like, from, anything that gives you a negative feeling, then you most likely have situations that you have suppressed from the past and are affecting you today. Like I said, if you didn't have a very troublesome childhood or didn't have a troublesome adolescence, you might not. Okay, I'm not saying everybody who's avoidant has inner demons and has situations that they haven't, been able to figure out or heal about themselves, but I think it is very likely that you do. When it comes to facing your inner demons, I think there's a point in your life where you really realize that you need to go back and get to the root of whatever it is that has changed you, whatever it is that you have suppressed, whatever it is that has hurt you in your past, in order to heal it and fix it today, because it is affecting the way you function in your day-to-day life. It is hurting your relationships. It's hurting your job. It's hurting your career. It's hurting how you see yourself. And it might even be giving you a lot of fear in certain areas of your life. It might be strengthening your self-doubt. It might be, related to why you have a low self-esteem. There's so many issues, and this is a very broad subject. So I do want to put it out there that there can be several situations that have caused the trauma from your past and created this lack or negativity that's happening in your life today. So I think where we start when it comes to addressing these inner demons is reflecting. And this is the hard part when it comes to our avoidant people. It's very difficult to even want to open up the door to your past if you have a lot of issues that you have been ignoring and or suppressing. I know a lot of people who have been on the more avoidant side when it comes to their emotions, and I've loved a lot of people who have been on the avoidant side. When you love someone who is avoidant, you see their traumas before they see it. It's a really interesting concept. As an anxious person, we overthink. I said this already. And we don't just overthink for ourselves, we overthink for others too. So we dive deep into another person's past, what they've told us, what we know about it, whether it's your sibling and you've seen it firsthand, or it's your partner and they've told you stories about it. And you're able to see it from that third person perspective and kind of break down what it is they've been through in their life to pinpoint where they could have been holding some pain from their past, and it's affecting the way that they are today. It can be so extremely difficult for another person to do that for themselves if they are not built that way. I'm speaking from the perspective of being able to do that like it's second nature, because I've been doing it my whole life. I've been overthinking, I've been analyzing, I've been investigating my whole life. It's exhausting. It's not great, honestly. Sometimes I wish I was avoidant. But in this case, it opens up the door for healing a lot easier than someone who's avoidant. For example, I've had many people in my life who have gone through very challenging childhoods when it comes to their relationship with their parents. This is probably one of the biggest sources of inner demons and or childhood trauma / things we have suppressed, is the relationship that we've had with our parents throughout our childhood. I think when it comes to the avoidant people, when they reflect back on their past and think about the things that they have gone through, you'll either see people, depending on obviously how traumatizing and or painful these experiences have been. But for example, let's say that it is just a negative experience with a parent. A parent might have walked out on them in their childhood and have not been there for them. Okay, that's the example that we're going to go for. When it comes to these people, these avoidant people, they acknowledge that that has happened to them. They acknowledge that situation and they see that, okay, it changed the way that they were. It hurt them in their past, and it gave them, what's the opposite of the upper hand? The lower hand. It gave them like not as good of a childhood. They weren't able to have the same experiences that people in their age range did when they had present parents. So they're very aware of the situation that they've been through, but when it comes to their lives today, they don't acknowledge how it has affected them. They don't acknowledge how it has played into the fact that now they're more closed off, that now they don't want to open up to new people, that they always expect disappointment from their partners, that they don't trust their friends as easily. There's so many things that have now adapted the way that this person functions based on having a parent that walked out in their lives. And they don't want to go back and navigate the experience that they went through in their childhood, because it will open up the door of the pain, the hurt, the fear, the emotion that they have felt in their childhood that they don't want to feel again as an adult. Sometimes these things hurt so much in our childhood, whatever we've experienced, that it's not even in our control to suppress these situations. Our minds will just ignore because we know that either we don't believe that there's a solution that can come out of it, or we think that it's not even worth investigating what it's all about because we're not going to end up changing our lives today. We just don't believe it's possible, right? Unfortunately, for our avoidance and for people who don't want to experience or re-experience the pain of the past, you need to face the demons that you live with, because the only way to get through them is to address them. You can't really expect to grow or change from situations that you refuse to look at, to, see or acknowledge. And you can't expect to be this perfect version of yourself, to have all of this success in your future, to live up to all these dreams that you've built up for yourself when there's a lot of inner turmoil going on inside of you. It's not healthy to continue to experience negative parts of your life and then brush them under the rug because they're now over. Because at the end of the day, these things, whether we like it or not, are going to stick in your mind-body system. There's emotions that you experience. There's thoughts that you think during these time frames. They create core thoughts in your mind, and they adapt the way that you actually believe about the world, about yourself, about who you are as a person. And I've said this so many times in so many episodes. So it's really important, and if anything is a PSA to my girls out there listening, or guys, that it's really important that we try to navigate the situations that we've been through in our life, whether or not we believe that they're even affecting us to this day, because chances are that they are. I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this. Chances are that they are, let's say 95%, in some way, shape, or form affecting the way that you go about your life today. Going back to our example of a parent who has stepped out on us in our childhood, there are such a plethora of ways that your mind and your body will now begin to navigate the world based on those experiences, that if you do not go back and try and heal the parts of yourself that have been hurt from that experience, then you'll have a lot of situations where you'll continue to hurt in your current life. A lot of it comes from the element of fear and the element of self-doubt. There is a lot of problems that come from just living in this day and age when it comes to dating, creating new relationships, where people have not addressed what it is that has hurt them in the past. Therefore, they go into future relationships. They keep making the same mistakes. They keep hurting different people. And I swear it's literally like a cycle where hurt people continue to hurt people. These people who have not healed their issues will go on to date other people who, might have been okay. They might be more stable. They might be, new to relationships. Therefore, they don't really have any past traumas. Maybe they had good relationships with their parents and they had a nice childhood. And now they meet somebody who had a really bad childhood, who has not addressed any of their inner demons, who's not addressed any of the problems that they've been through in their childhood. And then they go on to have a relationship with this person and genuinely treat them very badly. Like, traumatize their perspective of relationships and their perspective of love. And then guess what? This person who is now hurt by this person, this relationship, will try and mend that wound when they break up and effectively not really do it because they can't go back and relive that pain and try and work through it. So they go into their next relationship, they bring all these things from the last relationship, and let's say the next person is not bad and they hurt them, and they continue to hurt the next person. They continue to hurt the next person. It's generational trauma, ladies, except not generational. It's societal trauma. We need to take the first step to heal and face our inner demons because we'll be doing the world a service. Okay, I'm kidding. But we actually just need to do it because there's just so many more benefits to working through the situations that we've been through in our past versus ignoring them and continuously facing the same issues over and over again until one day maybe you're going to hit rock bottom, and then you're going to want to go backwards and try and figure out how you got there, and you're going to have a way longer road to investigate and navigate and try and figure out than right now if you started to work through it at this moment in time, let's say. So at this point of the episode, I think it's getting pretty obvious how we face these inner demons, and that is to address them head on. Before addressing these inner demons head on, a lot of people tend to find ways to unhealthily cope with them because they know that it's a problem, but they don't, once again, want to deal with it. They don't want to experience the pain of the past. They think it would be a lot harder work to, figure out what's going on and finding a way to heal/fix it versus continuing in their lives the way that they are. The joke of the day is that it's actually a lot harder work to continue to live the way that you're living and having all of these issues, self-doubt, negative self-talk, fear of failure, this inner critic inside of you, and just continue living like that, because you're going to be steering yourself down a spiral of negativity if you don't take the time, make the effort, and do the work now. In addition to that, if we don't go ahead and try and fix these things that we're experiencing now, unfortunately, I think that they will inevitably come out themselves. There's going to be ways that you can tell that someone is experiencing the effects of their childhood trauma or situations that they've suppressed in their past, because they will show in different ways. People will be a lot more depressed. People will show lazy tendencies, procrastinate. They'll feel a fear of failure. They'll not want to go and try new things out in their life because they don't think that they're capable of getting there. They don't want to meet new people. They don't want to open up, like I said. They don't feel the need to go out of their comfort zones. They don't want to explore. They don't want to figure out new ways of solving issues in their lives. They stay stagnant. And then they sit there and they wonder why they're stagnant. They wonder why there's areas of their life that they can't do better, or their perspective is so shallow and so negative that they don't even think that there's a possibility of getting anywhere further than where they are now. With acknowledging the ways that they can affect us today, let's get into how we can start to face these inner demons. Remember this as well. It is not about the demons. It's not about the issues. It's not about what it is that you've experienced in your past. That is not the bad part. Trying to run away from it is. Trying to run away from these issues is what is going to inevitably hurt you. It is knowing that these things have happened to you, but not thinking that they actually make a difference in your life today, that they're actually hurting you at all, when in actuality, they definitely are. If any of those things that I said previously feel like they relate to you in any way, that you can say, oh yeah, I feel like I do have this fear of failure. I feel like I do procrastinate a lot, or I don't want to open myself up to people, but you don't think that there's anything wrong with you, babe, keep listening. We gotta chat. So this formula of addressing areas of your life that have hurt you, I have talked about several times before. It all starts with preparing yourself and acknowledging that these situations might hurt. This area of your life might be very difficult to work through. Give yourself the space and the time to do so. Understand that, okay, if I want to go and figure out why I have no capability of opening up to anyone, why I can't feel close to other people, why I have no urge to, find love and or keep it and or open myself up to people, then I need to now give myself the time and space to figure out why. I'm not going to get into another relationship that I know I can't maintain and I can't give that person what they need. I'm not going to put tons of things on my plate right now because I know that I need to address the situation that's happening to me. Unfortunately, life is kind of like a long to-do list. And if this is something that you need to do, add it to your to-do list. Put it on the list, babe. It might sound stupid, but if you feel like you need to figure this thing out in your life, give yourself the time and space to do so you can actually make a difference in how you've been living your life now that you don't like. When I mean give yourself time and space, I really mean set time aside where you are going to be able to journal, where you're going to be able to reflect, where if your issues stem from your childhood, you can go speak to your sibling, you can go speak to your mom or dad, where you can go find out more about your childhood, things that you have suppressed, things that you might not know now, you're going to go and find out. Going to therapy is the number one best way to be able to navigate your childhood trauma, the things you've suppressed, the issues that have gone on in your past, because you have a licensed professional who is actually there and helping you navigate it, and then also giving you the answers for why you are the way you are, because they know about it. They know about the psychology of the mind. They know how things have changed you in your childhood and why you act the way you do today. That's why I feel like I know so much about myself, is because I've learned so much in therapy. And from these tools that I've learned, it's like I can kind of put two and two together in my mind about, okay, I didn't have the best relationship with my older sister in my, my adolescence. Like we argued a lot. We didn't trust each other. Maybe that affects X, Y, and Z today. There is a lot to navigate when you have not even tried to figure out what has gone on in your childhood, these suppressed emotions. Having someone to guide you to do that is top tier, 10 out of 10. No, it's not super accessible. Unfortunately, it's not cheap. It's not something that everyone can have. But if you have the funds, but you just don't want to spend it, if you think it could be spent better elsewhere, do it. Go to therapy, try it out, see how it works for you. I think it'll genuinely benefit you a lot when it comes to figuring out these things of your childhood, especially if you don't have any experience doing it. Other tools that I would recommend when it comes to navigating these past things in your life now is journaling, is watching YouTube videos. I would watch a lot of videos that are like why we feel like emotion is fact. I can't give right now in this episode a very specific example to you guys because there's so much that has to do with what we've suppressed in our childhood and these inner demons. So it's hard for me to give you the perfect tool that could help you. That's also why we have these questions between you and me at gmail.com. So I can in the future, but today I don't have a question that has to do with that. Anyways, but there's a lot that you can find out on the internet, like incredible amounts. When I first started trying to navigate my anxiety and learn more about it, I was probably 20 years old, and I would sit down in the evening with my laptop and look up, what is anxiety? What is blah, 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 blah. Why do I feel da, 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 da? Why do I feel such an overwhelming amount of guilt? For example, I was dealing with a lot of guilt at that time, and it was increasing my anxiety. It was really difficult for me to cope with, and I needed to figure out, where these things could come from. And I would just get on Google, watch some videos, write down some notes. Like, it would help me. This is why creating the time and space is so important, because if you're a busybody, you're going to be cruising through your life and not making any time for it. And then you're going to be 45 years old and you're going to say, why am I still like this? Why do I feel like I haven't grown or changed or, been able to figure out why all these relationships fail, or why my career is failing, or why X, Y, and Z is not coming to fruition the way I wanted it to? Maybe because there's something inside of you that you have not addressed. So then with those tools, with making the time and space, with figuring out what has to be healed and dealt with, inevitably, slowly but surely, you'll be able to change, you'll be able to adapt, you'll be able to find new ways of doing things. You're going to learn things that will literally blow your mind. You'll sit there and be like, there's no way I've been acting like this my whole entire life. I've been seeing things through a certain lens. I've been having this certain perspective, and now I see things differently. You know, life is just going to adjust, adapt in beautiful, hopefully happier ways. You might have to experience this pain again, once or twice, 3 times or 4 times, multiple times. But it'll be worth it. That I can promise you. If you are nervous, if you're scared about experiencing this pain again, if you don't want to open up your heart or mind to this stuff that you've experienced in the past, I promise you now that it will be worth it. I think fear stops a lot of us, and if you continue to let fear stop you in your day-to-day life, I don't think you'll look back and you'll be very happy with where you've gone in your life. And that's the sad truth. And that's what I tell myself all the time, because a huge source of anxiety is fear. So take the fear and move with it. Address the things of your past, address the inner demons, make time and space for it, speak to other people about it, speak to therapists about it, speak to people who will understand you about it. Learn as much as you can, look things up, figure out more about yourself, and continue to adjust the way that you are and being open to change. I think that's all for this episode. Unfortunately, my camera is going to die, so even if I wanted to talk more, I can't. But I love you guys. Thank you again for being here for the continuation of season 6. Don't forget to follow me on all platforms, which will be in the show notes, and ask some questions to the Gmail, which will also be in the show notes. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. Love you. Bye.